Hello and welcome to this session in which we would look at the System and Organization Controls Report, SOC report. The SOC report is composed of several essential elements or pieces. One of them is the description, and that description is provided by management, and we could have a SOC 1 description, SOC 2 description, cybersecurity management description. What's going to happen in this session, we will focus on the SOC 1 description. Also, we will need to take a look at the assertion of management. Now, bear in mind, we're going to look at SOC 1, SOC 2, cybersecurity. When it comes to assertions of management, we're going to look at SOC 1 and SOC 2. Then we're going to look at the report from the independent auditor. There's a SOC 1 and a SOC 2. And remember, there's a type 1 and a type 2 as well under the report. And the controls tested by the auditor and the outcome of these tests. We'll look at those as part of the report, and we'll look at how the auditor conduct those tests. So notice there's a lot to cover within this list, which is the SOC report. For now, we're going to focus on SOC 1. We're going to move from SOC 1 to SOC 2 description, then cybersecurity, then the assertion, SOC 1 and SOC 2, then the report, so on and so forth. So there's a lot to cover. Let's go ahead and get started by looking at the management description in SOC 1 report. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com.
Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today.
So a SOC 1 report, you have to understand, it focuses on, and I hope you know this at this point, when we say SOC 1, internal control over financial reporting, it focuses on the service organization internal control as they pertain to financial reporting of their client companies. So the responsibility of creating this system description lies with the management of the service company, because the service company is presenting this. The service company is saying, this is what we do. So this description is important because it provides the necessary details for auditors, user auditors, who review the financial statement of the client company. So we want to know what you do. You're going to give us a report, a management description, what you do. Now, this helps also the auditor understand how the service organization processes influence the client financial statement and assist them in evaluating the risk that these statements might be materially misstated. Remember, the user entity is using the service of a service organization. The auditor wants to know, the user auditor, what type of service are you providing to my client? So we have the user entity, and we always say the user entity is an online education institution, Farhat Lectures. The user entity is my company, Farhat Lectures. I have my own auditor, but I also use an outside company to handle my IT service. So my auditor wants to know what type of services my IT outsourcing company is providing to me. And this is what we'll show them. We show them the description. Now, do we have a formal way of showing this? There's not one way to do this. There are many ways. The content of the report might vary. The description might vary depending on what type of services we are offering, what type of company we are doing. But there are common things that all reports should show, all descriptions should show. So these descriptions are shaped by the service organization management based on factors like organization size and the complexity of the operation. And this gives flexibility, but this flexibility ensures that the description is comprehensive and relevant. So there's no one way to do it. So how to do it? Make sure you give us everything. It's comprehensive and it's relevant, especially to the service organization and its client, and specifically if we're looking at SOC 1, relevant to internal control over financial reporting. So tell us everything. Now, again, since there's no specific list or it's flexible, we're going to look at the minimum you should have in that description. First is the type of services provided. You want to outline the specific scope of the services the organization provides and the type of transaction it processes. So the auditor wants to know exactly what are you providing to my client, what type of services. And when we say the auditor of the user entity. An example would be a payroll processing company would detail the calculation, withholding, and the transfer of payroll funds. This is what they do for us. This is the scope of the work, payroll processing. So tell me exactly what you do. This is exactly what I do. Procedures performed. Describe to me how these procedures are performed. Are they manual? Are they automated? How do you perform this? And here we're going to include step-by-step process. Here, procedures performed. The auditor wants to understand exactly how you are doing this. From the initiation to authorize, to record, to process, and how you correct information. So in an automated billing system, let's assume the case, procedures might involve the generation of invoices, their approval, and the recording of these transactions in the financial system. If that's what they're handling, outline the procedures for me. If they're handling our billing, outline the system. How the system is functioning. Explaining how the system addresses significant events and conditions beyond regular transaction. If there's something unusual, an adjustment, something that's not automated that you have to do separately, part of the billing, part of the payroll, could you tell me how it works? For example, a financial system might have the functionalities to flag large and unusual transaction for further review. That's good. I need to know this as an auditor, how your system functions. So this is just an example. It could be other examples of this. Also, I want to know if you have a subservice organization. Now, what's a subservice organization? Well, this is Farhat Lectures. It's the user entity. I'm an online education service company. I have my own auditor. I outsource my IT to a company called Best IT Support. Best IT Support is part of my company. So my auditor wants to know how my Best IT service my company. They're part of my company. Therefore, they're part of my internal control over financial reporting because they are integrated somehow with my company. Now, Best IT Service could also outsource their HR services. Well, this is called the subservice company. So you need to identify any third-party services used by the organization and specify whether the subservice control are included directly in the report, if it's inclusive method, or if the subservice company's own control are considered the carve-out method. Don't worry, we'll talk about the inclusive and the carve-out later on. The point is, in the report, in the description, you need to let the auditor in your report knows about the subservice company. And this is the subservice company, Best HR Services. Now, if a data center, for example, is used to host managed servers, the report will detail how their security measures are integrated in the overall control framework. Again, we'll talk about the subservice companies later on, but if they exist, we need to discuss them. Controls, of course, we need to talk about controls. SOC is all about controls, right? Outline the objectives of each control, its design, the frequency of operation, the responsible parties, and the source of information used. This is part of the description. For example, a control might be a monthly reconciliation of account performed by a finance team using bank statement to verify entries. So this is part of the control. Also, you want to give a comprehensive control environment information. And who wants to guess what do we use for this? You guessed it, the COSO framework. Detailed other elements of control environment like risk assessment, information and communication, control activities, monitoring, control environment, everything. The COSO, and we talked about this in several separate recordings. That's part of the description. Regular internal audits and feedback mechanism to gauge the effectiveness of the control and communication channel. This could be an example of it, but there's going to be many examples of this when we look at the comprehensive control environment. Then we get a prepare report, describe the process used to compile reports and other relevant information for user entities. So when we prepare report for the user entity, for example, year-end financial reporting process or the payroll for that month, how do we do this? How do we prepare the report? Show us in the description. Why? That's important. That's important for the auditor to know this. Deficiencies in information. You also want to do detailed any known deficiencies in information used in transaction processing and how they are corrected. If you have any problems, I need to know how did you correct this problem. Procedures for correcting misclassified expenses in financial report before finalize them. Exactly how do you do that? Tell me in the description. Also, you want to discuss complementary user entity controls. What are complementary user entity controls? Well, again, we have the user entity, which is Farhat Lectures, that's using IT support from another company. Now, my company and the IT support are integrated somehow. So because they are integrated, the IT support, they want to know how I handle the integration. Am I handling the integration properly? So they want to specify controls for that user's entity must implement. So in the report, they will tell our auditor, so we want your client, Farhat Lectures, to implement certain controls on their end to make sure the controls are working properly. So specify controls that the user entity must implement on their end, because the auditor, my auditor, will have to check to make sure everything is working properly. So a user entity might need to maintain adequate security measures to protect its network when connecting to the cloud service. So assuming this is a cloud service, I'm outsourcing my cloud service, they would say you want to make sure you have the proper security measures if you are connecting to our service. Accuracy and completeness of the description. Report any significant modification to the system during the report period. If there's any significant modification, like what? There's any upgrades to software or changes in key management personnel, let us know about this. Ensure that the system description is comprehensive. We talked about this, and does not omit or distort information that's significant for a broad range of user entities and their auditors. So you want to give enough information and you don't want to omit anything. Although the report may not cover everything, but you want to give everything that's relevant, every specific need for each individual user entity. You want to give them enough. And so this description would include all the primary functions and controls, but they may not go into specific scenarios that only apply, for example, to a minority of users. Why? Because the service organization might have 10, 15 different clients, and the description, it may not be the same for each one. Because for some customers, they might go into very, very detailed descriptions that's not needed for others. So that's why it's not needed. Now, anyhow, if you're interested in looking at those SOC reports, you want to Google, SOC 1 engagement report, ISC CPA, and it takes you to their website and you can take a look at it yourself. Just if you just want to look at an actual report. But this is for the Information Systems and Control CPA exam. This is a good review basically of what you need to know. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question by farhatlectures.com. During a SOC 1 engagement, if a payroll processing firm wishes to explain how it handles errors in transaction entries, which section of the system description would this information most likely appear? Is it in system functionality? Well, system functionality discusses the capabilities, like how do we do things, rather than error handling procedures. How the system is functioning. Procedures performed. Well, this talks about procedures for performing services, not how we handle the errors. Prepare reports. Well, this focuses on how we prepare the report. How do we prepare the report for the user entity, not how do we handle errors. Deficiency in information, you guessed it. It's deficiency in information, where we discuss how errors in transaction entries are being handled. If the payroll processing wishes to explain how it handles this, there's a section called deficiency in information. So you need to know what each section entails and what does it include, just to get an idea in case you are asked about this on the CPA Information System and Control exam. Now in the next session, we would look at a SOC 2 description. What should you do now? You want to go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs. That's going to help you, especially if you're studying for the CPA exam, Information Systems and Controls. Good luck, everyone. Stay motivated and stay safe.